an opportunity to get on. Let's just give a few minutes, but let me just go ahead and introduce myself. This is Coach Smith with Love the Game 24/7, your favorite coach and referee. As you can see, my referee jacket behind me. But man, this is Coach Smith. He's coming on. We're going to be talking about Nico, Iamaleava, Travis Hunter, some Aaron Rodgers, NFL draft. Let's get into it, right? So, but I appreciate you guys subscribing. I appreciate you guys who take the time to listen and watch, whether it's live or the recording. But I appreciate it if you subscribe and also hit that bell, right, on my YouTube channel so you can get notifications when Coach Smith, your favorite coach and your referee, goes live to talk about topics of the day in sports and recruiting and, whatever it may be for you young male and female athletes out there and you parents that are looking for some guidance and needing some guidance because you do, right? I'm just telling you like it is. There needs to be some guidance, and especially the way things are going now in the world of college sports and recruiting, okay? I was just looking at some show from earlier today on NFL Live discussing a lot of different things. We'll get into it. But like I said, Coach Smith on his YouTube channel, I'm trying to get to over 1,000 subscribers, right, and increase my viewership. So I appreciate the love. I appreciate you sharing this information. I'm also live on IG with Coach Smith 27. And you can also follow my IG on Love the Game 27. But you can always find Coach on any social media platform by going to my website. Thank God I got my website. LoveTheGame247.com is up and running and kicking since I did my football camp 3 weeks ago. So I appreciate you guys who have taken the time to jump on and join the show. Love the Game 24/7 podcast with Coach Smith. But I appreciate it, guys, man. I appreciate the growth that I'm getting. I'm going to try to get more and more some shows, not too many breaks in between. But, we're going to hit some of the topics of the day or topics of the week and what's going on in the world of sports, right? Things are heating up in the NBA. Playoffs is getting ready to get kicked off, right? This weekend we had the play-in that happened in the week, and now we're going to really get into the meat of the playoffs, right? So we have that going on. We have the NHL winding down their season and getting ready to get into the Stanley Cup run, right, for the NHL. So we got those things happening. NFL draft next Thursday. For first and foremost, before I even forget, man, let's just give thanks today for, I want to say, happy Good Friday to everybody out there. And I hope you're having a happy Good Friday. The wife and I spent a little time hanging out at the beach here in Wilmington area at Wrightsville Beach, kicking back for about an hour and a half and whatnot, just spending some time. It was great weather today, but happy Good Friday. Coach Smith enjoyed the day off today from working at the university. So, hey, I'm here. I thought about going live earlier, but I said, I'll do my normal. I may go live earlier, maybe sometime tomorrow. But we're having a huge, one of my sponsors from my camp, my church, Epic Church with Pastor Chris and Erica Green, Epic Church in downtown Wilmington in the Hannah Block. We're having our Easter egg hunt for the community at Portia Hines Park in Wilmington, and we're looking forward to that. I'll be grilling some hot dogs early tomorrow morning to get down there to give out in the community, and we're doing our Easter egg hunt, and so I'm excited, for that. Epic Church, Pastor Chris Green and First Lady Erica Green, appreciate their support and sponsorship for with my football camp that went well several weeks ago. What's up, Richard? Appreciate you jumping on again, man. We got some stuff we're going to talk about today. I'm just going to touch on some things, but I appreciate you guys. Like I said, help me get my subscription up on my YouTube channel. I'm a little over 600. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. So I appreciate it. You guys share this information for all you young male and female athletes out there who are trying to pursue a scholarship, right? I got 25 years in financial aid, right? I got over almost 15 years as an assistant director in financial aid. So I have that background to really help you as a student, whether you're just a student, not an athlete, non-athlete, and you want to get information about, scholarships and how to do that. I share that information on here. I'll be putting out my videos, some of my videos on my website. I'll be getting with my website builder, brother from my church, good brother that does this business that is going to help me continue to help grow my website. And that'll hopefully grow my following, because I'm going to be putting out some merch as well. So get ready for that. As you can see, I have one of my Love the Game LTG 247 camp shirt on. I got the North Carolina blue colors on this one. And so this is a, tap in, tap in right here on the shirt. And I also have the website like on the back of it. But I appreciate you guys showing the love, man, and sharing this information to any of those young athletes out there who need some help and some assistance with their recruiting process. But hey, let's get into it. Like I said, I'm live on my YouTube. Be sure you subscribe to my YouTube. But you can get to all my social media platforms via my website, lovethegame247.com. And so this is Coach Smith live on IG, Coach Smith 27, YouTube, Love the Game 24/7, and also on Facebook. But yeah, let's get it right into some of the stuff. Like I said, Nico Iamaleava, right? We heard the news and how it got put out there, and I even had on my show talking about, I hope, because I know a lot of these parents sometimes are misled by some of these agents out here now, or we can, there's really no official license you have to represent these young male and female athletes that are getting offers. And I know I have the ability to help represent some people. So if you do need some representation, I definitely can help you, because I know the business of sports. But there are people out there and families out there that sometimes are being misled. And I'm not saying that's what happened to Nico. I'll get more into that. But I know I shared, that, some of these people don't have a form of reference to come from, right? Because this is new. This is new to a lot of these recruits. This is new money to them, right? And you don't want to mess up your opportunity, okay? And you don't want to put give yourself a bad name, because you have some people who are representing you who didn't play the game at a high level. They weren't ones that sacrificed their bodies like some of these athletes are. They may be so-called agents who represent guys in the NFL, and they do know the business of sports, not saying they don't. But you got to really find somebody who really is going to lead you right and guide you. And it's not just about, trying to, make sure you get as much as possible so they can get as much as possible out of you. Okay. Because right now, like I said, there's no guidelines. Okay. Because I know with the NFL and NBA and some of these other leagues, they have guidelines in order for you to be an agent. And there's only a certain percentage that you can get from a pro athlete's contract. And it's usually only about 3%, anywhere from 1 to 3% that you can get from as an agent that they make off the contract. And that's pro contracts. Okay. That's not endorsement money, because it's a whole different ball game when you're talking about an agent representing their athlete, male or female pro athlete, and helping them get endorsements. Right? And what I mean by endorsements, where they're doing commercials, whether it's online, through social media, on TV, they get endorsement deals, or like they're, they have an endorsement deal with Nike where they get all the Nike shoes and outfits through Nike, and they also get paid a little something, right? Those percentages are anywhere from 10 to 20%, right? So when Kobe came out of high school and he had that $60 or $80 million shoe deal, right, with Nike or whoever he went with, right? So his agent who was representing him, who may have helped him land that deal or help get that deal inked and negotiated the money, that agent probably got anywhere from 10 to 20% off that 80 million, because they're paying him right now, right? Possibly, or they're paying it over 5 or 10 years, okay, on some of those endorsement deals. When when like Kobe signed his shoe deal. So yeah, the agent is making a whole lot more on endorsement deals. So that's why it behooves some agents, if they are good at what they do on that end, they can make a whole lot more money with representing an athlete for their endorsement deals than they do on their pro contract. Because like I said, it's anywhere from 1 to 3% is all the agent makes. Not saying it's not bad money, because when you got 5, 10, 20 guys, right, making multi-million-dollar contracts, as an agent, that 3%, that 1 to 3% ain't too bad, right? And then if these guys are getting some pretty decent endorsement deals, now granted, a lot of guys aren't getting only like the superstar players are getting like those major endorsement deals. But like my son has some deals, that he's doing since he's been in the league, and he's become a very good content creator, and so has my daughter-in-law. So they have representation. But yeah, so that's the difference. So with these high school kids and these NIL deals, you want to be sure, some families are representing, their own, which is fine if you know business. Okay. Maybe, like I shared on my last podcast, I like the way what LeBron did with his friends, because they all made a pact that when one of them make it, they were going to make sure that all of his buddies made it, right? That was the pact that they made. And so LeBron had an agent for like 2 or 3 years when he first got into the NBA. And then he fired his agent and the staff. But then he turned around and hired his agent to be consultants to train his friends in their different strengths, right? To help the business, right? To help LeBron and all. That's why you see these guys, his different buddies with the barbershop who does, his buddy that does that part of the business. You see Rich Paul representing. He was the older guy that they all kind of looked up to, because he started, he was selling things out of his car, right? And he was working at, I think at like Fanatic or somewhere like that. And so he understood business, and of course he needed to get some more experience. And when LeBron hired his former agent, because I remember watching the story where his agent said, man, this guy don't know what he's doing. What is he? He's firing us. But then he said one of the greatest things and one of the smartest things he ever seen anybody do, he turned around and hired his agents as consultants to train all his buddies, right? And so these guys, his buddies, all had a different interest. And LeBron and all those guys made a pact, and they all got trained well by some, as consultant. Like I said, LeBron hired his agent to be a consultant to train those guys and himself. And so that's a smart thing. So, if you guys, you parents out there, want to represent your young male or female athlete, there are some opportunities through NIL in their sport, or endorsement deals through social media platforms and all that. It would be good that you can find somebody you can trust, whether it be a family member or not, and you put some things in contract, even if it is a family member. You put things just so that's where there's no, there's no questions, right, about anything, right? So that's what you should do, okay? And so so that's what I'm saying. Like with Nico's situation, I knew that it had to be something else with what was going on. And hold on, guys. 1 second. 1 second here. Let me respond to a text. Sorry about that. All right. So as I was sharing, with the Nico situation, where I knew it had to be more to it, but like I said, you don't always want to be the first with some things like that. But I know there were some things that were said on, somebody did mention that he was he's a Southern California kid. And some people were saying maybe he's trying to get back out that way. And so after I heard some news about him signing, because everybody was wondering, is he going to get signed? Because this is making him look bad. He asked for $4 million and from Tennessee, and didn't go to spring ball and was threatened that, hey, unless they pay him that, he's not coming. He's not willing to come back to play for his current NIL deal with Tennessee. And so, and I kind of felt some type of way, but still, I wanted to put out there like, hey, some of you family members, you may need to get make sure you get some people that really care about you, know what they're talking about. It's going to coach you up and really teach you, like what I'm talking about, and trying to help young male and female athletes, and you parents understand how to go through and navigate through this recruiting process. My son was looking for an agent. One of my good friends that I grew up with, that I can trust, a man of integrity, man of faith, GMB management with Garrett Blair. We grew up together, and he's been an agent for over 25 years. And I work with him myself, and helping sign some other athletes. And so I knew he was the best choice for my son, because if something were to ever happen to me, I knew I could trust that he was going to look out for my son's best interest. And so I've learned a lot being up under Garrett Blair, my homeboy out there in Dallas. And if anybody need an agent, we can help you with GMB Management Group, no doubt. Whether it's NIL or NFL, we can help you. But getting back to, like I said, with Nico, I knew it had to be something going on with that whole deal, because how can you ask for that when you really hadn't been as successful to be able to ask for that amount of money, right? Especially being in the SEC. You want to ask for that kind of money when you put your team in like the SEC championship, right? Or a playoff run, and I know he was a freshman or whatever, or, so to me, I was like, man, that's just kind of a lot to be asking. Well, when it came all boiled down to it now that he signed with UCLA, I'm saying to myself, okay, that's what it is. This is what was going on. And you got to understand, and some of you guys out there got to understand that there are certain rules that still apply with the NCAA, that if you step on that field, spring football, and now we got the NIL deals that even lock you in even more. But if he would have stepped on that football field during spring practice, he could not transfer to UCLA right now and play right away. Okay, this is what I'm saying. He wouldn't have been able to play right away if he'd have stepped on that field. So his agent was smart in getting him out of the NIL deal to leave Tennessee to go back to California, where he grew up, to play ball. And I got in this discussion with one of my good friends, my homeboy JT, if you're watching, who's back home in Jacksonville, Florida, back in Florida. And he and I had a good talk about this whole thing. And, he brought up a really good point. So I'm giving you props on this, JT. Everybody can't handle that heat when it comes to playing in the SEC, and especially playing in the South, right? Because football in the South, in the SEC, is like Bible. It's like church. It's life or death, right? The SEC style of football and the fans, when you don't come through, when you aren't coming through like they expect you to, and Nico is very talented and he needs some time, but sometimes these people aren't patient, and don't want to wait. They want that, they want that victory right now, not knowing that, hey, they want to win right now. And everybody, you're not going to win. That's the problem, I think, with all this, and some of this NIL stuff, and why the money stuff is just crazy with some of the money stuff. And like everybody who I've heard speak, like Kirk Herbstreit, because this is the thing that kind of got me, because Kirk Herbstreit had mentioned about how humble this young man was, right? And if that young man is as humble as Kirk Herbstreit was explaining, then that means that's what his family has taught him, right? And everybody was trying to say, oh, it's his father, it's his parents, blah, 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 and also his agent. Well, it was a very smart thing, because if he's a humble guy, that means his parents are humble and good people. But in order to get out of that deal and be able to play for UCLA, because he probably couldn't handle that heat playing in the Southeast. He's a California kid, right? It's a whole different mentality when you're coming from out west in California and places like that, right? Football ain't Bible, right? Football ain't life or death in California like it is in the Southeast or the Southwest, right? It ain't even like that in the Northeast. I mean, it's a whole different ball game being from the South in the Southeast when it comes to football. in Southwest Texas and places like that, you know. So here's a California kid not having that success. I'm sure he's probably seen, maybe have had some threats. Hopefully not, you know, but we know how some people can be, especially in the Southeast, man. They live and die by their teams, right? And so as my buddy JT was putting on share, you know, his kind of thoughts on what we're talking about. He's like, yeah, man, you know, football, man, in the Southeast, man, is a whole different mindset from the rest of the country. And if you can't handle that heat, man, playing in the Southeast, you know, that kid wanted to get back to where he was comfortable, right? He took a chance. I mean, I can't fault him, right? Tennessee, great program, great education, right? That orange and white, man, be beaming, right? And when they put that black and orange, right, you know, out there, man. So, you know, these kids, man, that's what I'm saying. Some of your parents, that's why it can't always be about the money, right? Because Nico was a prime example of why it can't be about money. And it wasn't about money with him. It wasn't about money because he's getting paid less than $2 million to go back home and play at UCLA, right? And then everybody said, "Oh, it's going to hurt his name." Well, now that we, you know, the people who behind the scenes who know football, this is why he did it. And according to NCAA rules, there's a certain way you have to go about doing things. And then because he didn't step on the field during spring football practice, right? Because if he did, it would hurt him from being able to transfer and play at UCLA next season. So that was just a tactic to get out of that NIL deal at Tennessee to let them like cut him or release him, you know, to say, you know, we're done with you, man, you know. So he was being led correctly with whoever's representing him, you know. So I'll retract on what I was saying, but yet still I don't retract on what I'm saying about, hey, make sure you're getting somebody that knows what they're doing and who really cares about your young athlete, your young male or female athlete. Okay. And so after hearing that he did sign with UCLA, and for what he signed for, you know, it wasn't about money at all. It was a tactic so that he can get from up under that deal, that NIL deal with Tennessee, so he can go play next year for UCLA. Now, that's what it is. And that's why in this business, until they figure stuff out, and then you young athletes gotta do a better job of trying to make decisions on where you should go play, and don't let it be about the money. Money is an aspect. Don't get me wrong. That money has to be part of it, but it can't be the totality of why you make your decision. It can't be the only reason why you make your decision. So Nico Iamaleava, and I know a lot of people were joking saying Nico Iamaleava. So it was a lot of different little memes and little things out there, and you know, and he had to take this heat until everything transpired. And so that's why I'm coming on, just letting you guys know out there who follow Coach Smith and love the game 24/7, break some of this down for you, because you still, you know, there's still that rule out there with the NCAA that you may have to sit out a year. And if he would have stepped on that practice field during spring football under that NIL deal, he would have had to, and if he would have transferred during the summer at some point and went to UCLA, he was going to have to sit out. Now, he may still have to sit out, you know, we'll have to see, but I don't think he has to sit out now because of how he handled it and because he never stepped on the practice field. So when I heard that part about him not going to practice, stepping on the practice field, it was still something in the back of my mind saying there's something else going on, you know, and I'm hoping it's not just about money. And like when you're asking for that kind of money and you're playing SEC ball and you haven't won an SEC championship or made it to the playoff yet in any round of the playoff, you're asking for way too much money right now. So I knew when I heard that part about practice that something else had to be happening. And once we heard that he did sign with UCLA after Tennessee let him go, that was the little false pretense that they put out there that it was about the money. And his dad was saying that it wasn't about the money. And like I said, he signed with UCLA for under $2 million, right? But he had to do it. He had to go about it this way because people. And see, here's why I'm bringing this up. See, people forget, man. You know, all the power that the coaches had for years Not just the NCAA making all the money on name, image, and likeness, because that's another topic. But I've always used this as an example, like when Cam Newton was at Florida and he decided he was leaving Florida. And Urban Meyer was not going to allow Cam Newton to transfer to Auburn and play right away. He wasn't going to release him to play at any time. So Cam had to go the JUCO route. With the way the rules were at that time, right, the rules aren't as strict. There's still some rules. And that's why Nico did what he had to do as opposed to going to play JUCO ball like Cam did if he would have stepped on that practice field doing spring ball, right? He would have hurt himself. And so that's why, he did what he did. But like I said, coaches had a lot of power back in the day, right, until recent times, right, where they didn't have to sign off on letting you go, and they weren't going to do that. And it wasn't right for coaches to have that kind of power to where you are holding up a kid's opportunity to go play right away or even a year later, because even if they did sit out, because you used to have to sit out no matter what. But that coach, Urban Meyer, still wasn't going to let Cam Newton go. So Cam got around that by going to play JUCO ball. But Cam is the type of guy that could handle that JUCO ball atmosphere. And everybody can't handle that JUCO ball atmosphere. That's a whole nother ball game. That's a whole nother situation that's going on in JUCO. It's almost like being in prison with some guys, because I had some homeboys that played JUCO ball. And it's just how that thing worked, because a lot of times you have some Division I schools who send kids to play Division I JUCO ball to help them prepare them, because some kids, they're very good athletes. They have the potential to be very good or great ball players. But for some reason, they needed more time to transition to being at a Division I school. So, and because their grades may not have been able to, stay up like they need to, right? So now we got to send him to a JUCO for a year so he can get back and become eligible again. And so some of these JUCO schools were making money from the bigger Division I schools because they were paying these coaches to take on several kids, right, from different and various Division I schools. These coaches would sometimes maybe stick this kid somewhere to JUCO close to home because he was having a hard time transitioning, right, to playing Division I ball in that type of atmosphere, even though he was a Division I athlete and physical specimen. Some of these kids were having a hard time transitioning. Let me see if I can get you in here, Vader. Where I see you on. Let me try to get you on with me on my IG. I had Richard on with me the other day, but let me try to see if Vader can hop on. Let's see. My buddy Vader Green, I grew up with back in the day. Trying to see if I can see if you got to accept it, Vader, if you're on the YouTube, you got to follow me, and then I believe you got to accept the invite in order to get on with me. But yeah, so I just wanted to make sure I share that part about the Nico Iamaleava situation, and I hope I'm saying his name right. But yeah, guys, so like I said, these coaches used to have a lot too much power when it came to kids transferring. And so now the kids have some power in deciding on when they want to transfer. And we have NIL being all a part of it now as well. So, and just like when I heard Chris Sims and I forget the other guy, the older guy that he does the show with, Pro Football Talk, like I said, you got to blame the NCAA, because for years they were raking in millions and millions of dollars for years. Now we have this short period of time, or this short window of time, where the players have a lot more power, and everybody felt like, oh, all hell is breaking loose because the athletes got took power away from them, from some of these colleges, and from the coaches, right? And the coaches had way too much power and authority to make or break a young man's career, or even a young lady, if she was playing basketball or volleyball somewhere, or softball, right, or baseball, right? It wasn't just about football, but these coaches had way too much power over these kids, right? And I'm a former Division II college football and track athlete, so I know, I lived it and saw some things. And like I said, I had friends who also, I grew up and played JUCO and Division II ball with me, so I know firsthand that everybody ain't built to deal with that junior college life. Okay, so yeah. Right, Richard. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Like you said, it's like a marriage, right? And the only way, um, now, granted, there are some people now who don't get divorced and still split, you know. So we do have situations that happen like that, and they need to just go on and get a divorce, but you have some people that don't. Um, but that does happen. But like I said, that was the way for Nico Iamaleava to get out of that whole deal to where he could go play right away, potentially play right away. If he'd have stepped on that football field, it would have been a done deal. He would have had to probably sit out for sure if he'd have stepped on that practice field during spring ball. So that was just a tactic. So in order to get out of that deal, granted, you got to take some of the negative heat, right? Until things transition and happen. And what happened? UCLA signed him just a few days later. Why? Because they probably knew the whole time that Nico was going to be coming to UCLA, and they just kept their mouths closed, right? And and just waited for some of this to smooth over. And so now we know what time it was, right? He was, like I said, everybody can't handle that SEC heat, man. That southeast heat, man, with some of these colleges, man, because football is life or death, man. It's like religion in the southeast, in the southwest, right? And you're talking about a California kid trying to deal with that southern lifestyle of football. Doesn't mean he don't love football, right? But it just means these people love it a little bit different, maybe how y'all love it out in California, right? But we know the history of football in America. It's the Southeast and then the Southwest, right? And then we have some Midwest in there with some Ohio, you know what I mean? We have some of that in there too. But like I said, with Nico Iamaleava being a Southern California kid, and you're trying to play ball in the Southeast, and it's like religion in the Southeast, in the Southwest. I mean, it means a lot. So who knows what he was dealing with when he didn't bring that success that Tennessee was looking for. They had some success, no doubt. Okay, but those fans were looking for more because of his ability and how he was a top rated quarterback coming out for his class, right? And so that's what I'm saying. When you got athletes are looking to be recruited, you got to understand, and hopefully your parents, if they have any knowledge, and they may not. That's why Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 is doing what he's doing. Because some people got to understand when it comes down to football, man, you got to know it's a whole different. It means a whole lot different, right? And I'm talking football specifically, and some other sports fall in there, but we know football is the major sport, right? In America. And so if you ain't grow up in the South, you could be a dog. You could be a dog and be a baller, but boy, it's a whole different kind of dog, boy. It's what they call them bloodhounds in Tennessee, right? Straight up bloodhounds, right? And those people act like bloodhounds, okay? And they're looking for their opportunity to rise in the SEC conference in football, right? They're looking for their bragging rights, okay? They hadn't had some of that since Peyton Manning left there, okay? So that's what I'm saying. California kid trying to play in the Southeast, man. Boy, look here. And I told you, my homeboy JT hit me on that when we were talking the other day. And so it makes a whole lot of sense, man, when you're a kid from California, right? They're a lot more open-minded and different out there in California, right? It doesn't mean they can't play ball, but compared to the Southeast, look here, man, it's real. It's religion. Hey, what's up, Grady? I'm sorry, man. What are the rules about high school kid getting an agent for college? I mean, NIL, there's no rule. It's not an agent. It's just a person that's NIL representation. So you have some agents who have left, and I got a homeboy who worked with his former agent when he was trying to play NFL. His former agent has left the NFL because he prefers the NIL representing kids at the NIL level. Why? Why? Because there's no regulations with it, Grady, right now. So with high school kids, so as long as they are representing them for an NIL situation, they can have whatever representation. You can be the representation for anybody, right? And your own son who's doing real well in baseball, and hopefully, Grady, your son is getting some opportunities. Because I keep up with you and sharing your information with your son and the Lakewood Spartans baseball team. So, man, appreciate the question that you brought. I appreciate it, brother. Grady is one of my homeboys from back home. His brother is former NFL and Notre Dame star Pat Terrell, former Notre Dame star Pat Terrell, and Grady's son Xavier seems to be is taking after his dad footsteps in baseball. But no, there is no. I think the only rule they have with NIL with high school kids, is that you can't wear your team paraphernalia when you're doing NIL deals, right? You may be able to talk about where you go to high school, but you can't wear your team paraphernalia when you're doing an NIL, if you're doing a commercial, you got an NIL deal. But as far as rules about high school kids getting an agent, they can't get an agent, right? Not as it pertains to a football, pro football contract, right? You got to have an NFL agent for that. And they're not eligible to have an agent until their junior year in college anyway. So they don't I don't believe they call it an agent. They just call it NIL representation. So you can have NIL representation. And that's why I shared too that some of these kids and families need to understand if your kid is being sought after because they have a huge following on their social media platform and they are an athlete, you need to make sure they get an LLC. So, and they may not be old enough, so you have to check and see what's the age for them to have an LLC. Maybe they can, so maybe mom and dad has to have it on their behalf. But you need to check in your state about that whole situation on what age do you have to be in order to own an LLC, and they may not have an age. So I don't know that exactly, but they need to have an LLC so they can have write-offs, right? And if they're doing any kind of filming from their room, in their home, in their bedroom, is their main hub. Like my main cave is my major place where I do pretty much almost 100% of my footage, as you can see, is up here in my man cave. Every now and then I'll go live somewhere when I'm out. But that's very few and far between that I do that. I probably need to do a little bit more of that. But definitely they need to have some sort of representation. But like I said, Grady, you know enough about business, bro, and sports between you and your and Pat, man, playing pro ball. That if you know enough kids and people are coming to you asking for your advice about it, like I said, we also got Garrett Blair, so you got a lot of people who are NFL agents. NFL agents can't represent. Let me say this, because NFL agents, let me say how I want to say this because Garrett shared this with me. I think NFL agents can represent, but they have to be very careful about their language in the agreement and representing a young man. And they also have to be careful that if they do represent a kid in an NIL, that they have to be careful that if a kid does end up signing with them, if they have an opportunity to be in the NFL, they got to be very careful about how that whole thing happens as well. So that's why I think you have some NFL agent guys not doing it, or they have totally left representing players in the NFL and strictly doing NIL, or they started another division in their NFL agency business and have some other people they've hired to strictly do that, because they can get in trouble with the NCAA agents can in the NFL if some of these kids, if they find out there was some coercion, that when they represented them as in their NIL deal, and eventually when they got done in college and they signed with that same agency. So there's some tricky stuff there. And so that's why it may be good I would tell a parent, be very careful about letting somebody who's an NFL agent represent you, or NBA agent, right, represent your young, male or female athlete that has some huge promise of playing maybe at the pro level eventually one day. But I know it's usually the NFL has some regulations on that end of it. So that's who has some regulations, is the NFL. They don't want to be sure that you're not, coercing these kids from when you represented them with an NIL deal and you automatically get them when they go to the league, right? NBA, NFL, MLB, it doesn't matter. So somebody like me who's not a certified NFL agent, but I work with an NFL agent or have access to talk like to Garrett because he's an NFL agent about contractual things and whatnot, I can represent someone. I have a master's degree in sports management. I have my MBA in sports management. So I'm able to, even though they don't have any regulations, that's what some of these parents, these young athletes need to do. Like somebody like me, if you vetted me, you can see that I have some experience because I've worked with Garrett for over 20 years, helping him find some potential guys to represent in the NFL, and I work closely with him in understanding more about the NFL contracts and that thing, and understanding more about the business of sports. And then I learned more about it as I went and pursued and earned my MBA in sports management from Tiffin University out of Tiffin, Ohio, online program. So I got my master's back in 2013 in the business of sports. So so that's what you want to do. You want to get people who, I played college and had the opportunity to play pro ball, followed in the older brother's shoes who did the same thing, have had the blessing of having my oldest son play at every level as well, and still a current NFL athlete. And so I understand some things more than just the average athlete because of my connection. And there's some athletes, sometimes you need to go talk to an athlete if you do know them and find out, hey, as a parent, you got this young male or female athlete, go talk to them. Now they're going to probably initially give you a free consultation, but then after that, of course, they're going to charge you an hourly rate if you're going to get advice for them, and that's okay. You probably should have that resource in the back of your hand to help you negotiate. Even if you're going to represent your own child, you need to have some sort of resource that you can go and speak to help guide you on contract agreements, even if you as a parent are going to represent your child, your young male or female athlete on your own. But get somebody who knows what they're talking about. Even if you're going to do it on your own, pay somebody, right? Have a consultant, somebody you can talk to and pay, a little something, right? You may not be giving them a percentage, but they may be willing to, hey, every time I talk to you, it's going to cost you this per hour, and me giving you some information to help you or read your contract, right? To help you understand it, okay? So they're not getting a huge percentage, anywhere from 10 to 20% or wherever it is. They're getting, a consult fee or hourly rate that they charge every time you come to get some help from them, right? Which is something probably wise to do, since a lot of these families, this is new money, right? Just like we're going to talk about the NFL draft. Some of these kids, after they interview some of these kids, they know they're coming into multi-millions of dollars, and sometimes that plays a part on where a kid gets drafted. They know he's good enough to play at this level, but they feel like, man, we don't know if this kid is mature enough that if we drafted him at this level, we know he's getting drafted. But if we draft him this high, that means, he's getting this kind of money initially, but it ain't always initial money, because everybody's that come in the league makes the same base salary, right? The first round, the seventh round, to undrafted free agents who make a team, the base salary is what it is. Where the money is being made is your signing bonus. Okay, that's where the millions of dollars come in at, is a signing bonus. Okay, now some people may make a little more over the base salary, but for the most part, everybody's coming in on that same base salary, whether you're a draft pick or not. That's where you'll see where the contract is bigger, where it's that signing bonus that's given to those first round guys are bigger, and then it gets a lower second round, gets a little bit lower in the third round, it gets lower in the fourth and fifth. So that signing bonus gets less and less, right? And then undrafted free agents, sometimes they may not get anything, or somebody might just give them a $5,000 or $10,000 signing bonus. My son got a small signing bonus when he came out and was with the Jets his first year. He got a minimal signing bonus. It's just something they want to do, but undrafted free agents not going to get that kind of money that draft picks get. And then late round guys are not going to get what first round guys get, but they're all making the same base salary. So whatever the new base salary is for this draft class that's coming out, I think it was around 450 or 70 some thousand. I think it was just under $500,000 when my son was coming out. So, and it changes, it increases every year by a certain percentage. So whatever that base salary is, every draft pick this year is going to make that same base salary, right, on their contract, but it's the signing bonus money. And then the signing bonus money gets split between, like first round draft picks all get signed 4-year deals with the 5th-year option. First rounds only. They all get drafted on the 4-year contract with a 5th-year option. Everybody else that gets drafted signs a 4-year contract in the draft from 2nd to the 7th round, whatever it is. They all get 4-year contracts. Undrafted free agents get 3-year contracts. Okay, so that's how it goes. First rounders, 4 years with a 5th-year option. 2nd through the 7th round, they get 4-year deals. And then undrafted free agents get 3-year deals. But everybody's making the same base salary. But that signing bonus, with those first round draft picks, whatever their signing bonus is, it gets split over that 4 or 5 years. I think 5 years since they have that 5th-year option. And then 2nd to 7th round, whatever their signing bonus is, that signing bonus gets split, by four. Well, let me say this: they get all their money. Okay, the draft picks, they get all their money, in undrafted free agents who get a signing bonus, they get all their money up front. But on the salary cap, it gets split up, I think, on 5 years with first rounders, 4 years with all the other draft picks from 2nd through 7th round, and then for 3 years, if the undrafted free agents get a signing bonus. That's how it's split up on the salary cap each year. That's how it goes. So it's so that's when you hear them talking about the salary cap and how it's going to hit, how some of these deals are going to hit the salary cap. Just know, if a guy gets a first round guy gets, say, he signs a big contract, and 20 million of that contract, is is his signing bonus. So it's going to be over 5 years. It's going to be 4 years, right? So it's $4 million, right? Because 4 times 5 is 20. So that's how it would get over that 5-year period of that first round draft picks, and he signs a $20 million. He signs a $20 million contract, $20-something million contract, and 20 million is a signing bonus. He gets the 20 million minus taxes, of course. But he's as far as IRS, he got paid 20 million, and it's just going to get spread by the team for their salary cap situation over those 5 years. Then those 2nd round through 7th round picks, their signing bonus gets spread out over 4 years. And then the undrafted free agent, if they get a signing bonus, is spread out over 3 years. So that's how that works. But the base salary for everybody is the same, no matter what, no matter when they get drafted. So everybody makes the same base. But yeah, so that's the whole situation with Nico. The thing with Travis Hunter that I just want to touch on real quick is, everybody's talking about, both ways, this and that. And Travis Hunter was saying, if they don't let me, I'm not going to play. I'm quitting. I'm not going to play football. That's just a bunch of foo-foo. Okay. That's the word I use. He's just talking out the side of his neck. He's going to play football. I don't care what they said. He's going to play. And he can talk about that nonsense he wants. But let's also understand he's going to play both ways, but not to the degree or level he thinks he's going to play. Because if Travis thinks he's going to play in the NFL with the best players in the world, and they're lighting him up at wide receiver, his career will be very short. He won't play long. And so he's not using wisdom about wanting to play every down. That's not going to happen. And he will play, right? And it'll be crazy not to play in both ways. There may be some games where he might play more offense than defense, and vice versa. He may play more defense than offense. Okay, but he is not going to play that many snaps. And they'll be crazy to put his body and subject his body to that. And I'm sure Dion and all the other people around him are trying to tell him, look, man, there's a lot of guys who play both ways. Okay, most of us grew up playing both ways. Travis ain't the only one that played both ways growing up playing football. Most of us grew up playing both ways. Okay, and I know I had the ability to play both ways if I wanted to. I don't want to waste my time trying to play both ways, playing DB and running back. Now, if that's what I had to do a little bit, I would have done it, of course. If they needed me to do it, of course I would do it. But you can only do that so much. Your body can only take so much. And when you're playing with the best ball players in the world. And the game is still a physical game. It's still contact. And you're not a big guy. And I don't care if you are a big guy. You know, to be able to take some of that punishment, you're not going to take it very long. Your career is going to be very short. So Travis can say what he wants to say. He is not going to quit playing football. And these teams will let him play both ways. But it will be, you know, just like a pitcher. And Grady, you know this. You know, your son's a baseball player. You play baseball, and you know this. Grady's on my Facebook site, but you know this, man. You know, they may put him on a pitch count, just like they do pitchers, right? They'll put him on a pitch count. He'll play a certain number of plays. If they feel like, hey, we could use him more offense this week, you know, he's going to be on the pitch count on defense because they want him to be more effective on the offense. And then it might be the next week, it might be vice versa. We need him more on defense than we need him on offense. So he's going to be on a pitch count, just like they do pitchers in baseball, right? Because we got to save the arm. We got to save the pitcher's arm, right? In the next rotation that he's up, right? A pitcher can't pitch every game. That it doesn't make sense. And Travis can say what he want to say. Okay, that he'll quit playing football. He's lying. He will not quit playing football. Let me put my website on here. I forgot to add that. So you can begin to find my merch when I tell you my merchandise is up there. But Travis can stop, you know, saying the foolishness about that he's not going to play football if they don't allow him to go both ways. They're going to allow. I mean, like I said, they'll be crazy not to do it. But the kid is one of one. Okay, he is one of one. I'm gonna give him his credit. He's one of one. Okay. But there were some guys that know and recognize they could have gone both ways too when they played. But when you get to that league and see what time it is, and understand this is not something I can do full time for years. Because you can't. His career would be very short. And we don't want his career to be short. The kid's a beast and has a lot of talent that we want to see for years to come. And so I know he had this all come up and it's been all on TV, but I know some of that is him being told you got to say certain things to market yourself, right? To get the hype. And he'll be crazy not to say it. So some people got to not get all worked up. And I'm not going to get worked up. But I know some of you folks out there believing what he said, and he's not believing what he said himself. It's marketing. Just like Flage with LSU wrote her letter thanking everybody. I mean, has she announced that she was leaving LSU? I don't think so. But you know, she's a hip hop rapper and everything. Maybe she got a new album that she was trying to promote. But she's gonna have herself right back at LSU. You know, she ditched in, like I said, she didn't go to the NBA draft. We know that because the draft was several days ago, and she wasn't. You know, because if she would have put herself in the NBA draft, she would have gotten drafted. She would have been a top 3, top 5 pick. So Flage put all that out there because either she knows something about maybe Full Wiley or somebody. Did they announce where Full Wiley was going yet? Has Full Wiley said she was transferring anywhere yet? Let me see. What is it saying? She shared her goodbye message. And so, yeah, you know, maybe Flage is looking to break out some news about maybe Full Wiley coming to LSU to play with them or something. But I think Full Wiley wants to go somewhere where she's the star of the show, which she ain't wrong. You know, she learned a lot on the Don. Like Juju's situation. Juju is a whole different situation with her staying home and playing as compared to Full Wiley staying home in Columbia and playing, right? Full Wiley, Don Staley is South Carolina women's basketball. She is college basketball. But Juju is USC basketball, period. Juju is the name that you associate with USC, not the coach. Don Staley is the name you associate with, and rightly so. And for a while, it was smart to go there and learn from one of the best in Don Staley. And now she wants to take a run for herself. Hey, she has 2 years. And the WNBA rules are, I think you have to play 4 years or something else come first, but you got to play 4 years before you can go to the WNBA. It's not like the NBA where you can leave earlier. They don't allow that in women's pro basketball here in the States. And in pro basketball in another country for women, it's a whole different. Yeah, you can come out of high school and go play pro ball in Europe, Japan, and other places, right? But that's all I want to say about that. But it's good to have some of this stuff going on in women's basketball to make us pay attention, right? So the women have learned that game now, a marketing game, and they should use it to their advantage to gain viewership, money, to help grow the league and everything that goes on with it, because I love watching it. College and WNBA. I watch college more, just like I watch college men's basketball more than I watch the pros, but I watch it all. So just to, because I enjoy it and to keep up with everything. So, but I enjoy college more than I do pro. But I probably watch football, college and pro, about the same amount, because I just love football. But I love the game 24/7. Whatever it is, I'm going to watch something. Just like I watched some of the gymnastics going on last night. I watched some of that, and those girls are off the chain. And I was wondering, do they have a men's championship? I got to find it. Do they have a men's NCAA championship in gymnastics? I don't know. Let me see. I know they have a women's. Hold on, let me. I need to plug something up. 1 second. I was wondering that they promote the women's gymnastics, but do they have a men's gymnastics? Yeah. So the men's gymnastics is going on, but for some reason, man, I don't see it promoted like the women's gymnastics. That's men being promoted, like baseball, softball gets some action, but I haven't really seen men's gymnastics really being hyped up or promoted, even though there's a championship going on too. So that's kind of odd that I see more marketing and promoting of the women's gymnastics, which is good. Hey, that's good. The women get a leg up on the men in a specific sport, because I cannot recall seeing anything about the men's NCAA gymnastics being televised anywhere. And I'm sure it is, but I just haven't seen it marketed. So, hey, great for the ladies, gymnastics. So that's exciting. And then just before I get out of here, just to touch on a little bit about the Aaron Rodgers thing. Look, man, these NFL teams are represented mostly by men, right? Women want and need to be loved. I know that, being a man of faith and reading my word, that women, not that men don't want to be loved, but that's not our priority. Men's priority is respect. And so Aaron shared his whole thing on Pat McAfee, his interview and this and that. And he does, and I think he's gotten a lot of respect. And I do hope, I'm pushing for Aaron to come back and play. I mean, if he doesn't, I'm not going to lose any sleep. But I think he still has some good play in him that he could help a team. And I would like to see him win another Super Bowl. I really would, and take a team to the Super Bowl. But more than anything, like he said, he mentioned that he flew on his own dime out to New York. He knew there was a possibility of a chance that he may not be with the Jets, but he was willing to go out there to have some meaningful conversation for, like he said, he thought maybe that he may have a couple of hours. That's where his mindset was. But it didn't take the Jets long. They were already, he knew, of course, that Justin Fields is there. But, he's like, hey, maybe they want to use him. And he was fine and happy with that. Like he said, he'll play for $10 million, But Aaron just felt, he's been high on the food chain as being a top NFL performer and athlete, even though he did get him one Super Bowl. But his talent level, you would have thought he would have gotten more Super Bowls. I think he's had chances to get them. You can't totally blame everything on him. But sometimes, they didn't have a good defense, and sometimes Aaron just wasn't able to get them over that hump like some other quarterbacks, like Tom Brady or somebody has. Even though they didn't have great defenses, and Tom had some really good defenses, but there were times where Tom didn't always have the best defense, but Tom just outplayed the defenses that he had to go up against. And I think Aaron is nibbling at the bit to want to try to get back to at least one more Super Bowl opportunity. But more than anything, that conversation that Aaron had, man, it's all about respect. And he felt like he wasn't respected, And I know, being in that game myself and having an opportunity in being on the NFL team and practicing, I know some of these guys, when they draft guys, they may have an undrafted free agent that is clearly better than somebody that they drafted, but because of men and how men operate, they don't want to be wrong, so they'll live and die by that bad draft pick, even though they know they got a guy sitting right there that's an undrafted free agent. There are some teams who don't care, very few, all right, or people that run some teams that don't care, but for the most part, these men are going to live and die by their bad decision of a draft pick, even though they got an undrafted free agent sitting over there that is clearly better. And I know that from personal experience when I was on in training camp. And you know it too, because you'll have guys who've been in the league that watch the young guys. When I came in as a rookie, and be like, hey man, they let you go. I was there till the last cut, but then you have these seasoned NFL guys, even some of the DBs, Smitty, bro, they let you go. They ain't ask you about getting on the practice squad. Now the practice squad wasn't as big as it is today. You got 10 or 12 guys. In different ways you can have a guy on the practice squad now. Back then it was only like 4 or 5, I think, back in my day. But when you have guys like a Chris Dishman, who was all pro, who I went up against practice and gave hell. And if he was on this podcast, I would love to get him on here. If he's on this podcast, he remembers Smith. He'd tell you, I used to work him. He even said in practice one day when he just said, hey, he was breaking down, talking to us young rookie receivers before we were doing some one-on-one drills, and he just said something. He was just telling us, he said, some of y'all rookies I don't want to waste my time going up against, because you all give me too much respect, because I'm Chris Dishman and y'all know I've been one of the best corners. But when I come up here, I want to give you a chance to be seen, right? Because he, like he said, I know I'm going to be here because I've proven, right? But I'm trying to help some of you guys that, hey, if you can come up here and you can outdo Chris Dishman, it may give you a chance to be on this team. But like he said, some of those rookies, he's like, man, I like going up against Smith, and he named one or two other rookie receivers that were there. He's like, I like going up with these guys because their head not in the clouds when they come up and go against me. They're beating me. They're trying to beat me, and they have beaten me. And Dish used to always tell me, like, Smith, slow down. I was 100, man. I was full speed in practice. And Dish used to be like, hey, Smitty, man, you ain't got to be 100. And then, guys would be laughing like, man, don't be listening to Dish. He already on this team, Smitty. You trying to make it. Don't listen to that brother. Don't listen to what he's saying. He's like, man, y'all Florida guys, man, y'all some of the Speedy Gonzalez's, right? You see Trevor's eyes. He's like, man, y'all some fast brothers. He's like, man, slow it down, man. Like, I'm like, man, Chris, I'm trying to be where you are. Stop telling me that. And I know he was just joking, but it's all in fun. But like I said, Aaron Rodgers is just looking at the fact that he felt at his level that he's played and had the success that he's had, but it's business, man. It ain't personal. And Aaron Glenn, the new head coach, he just put it out there and said what he said. Even though your expectation, Aaron Rodgers' expectations was looking to go a different way in that conversation, than he thought it was going to go. But it just lets you know, man, no matter what level you played at, that this is business, okay? And it is what it is. So, like I said, with these men that run these pro sports organization, granted, sometimes you do need women. My wife has told me on many occasions, she's a registered nurse. She says she hates having to work on a floor and it's all women. She'd like to have at least a man or two in there to kind of break up things, right? The way we're thinking on how to deal with patients and different things like that. And it goes for any other thing. I'm in financial aid, 25 years, assistant director about 15 years, going on almost 15 years as assistant director, right? I don't want to be in an office full of women, but there's mostly women in the financial aid business and at these universities. So it's always good to have a mix, diversity of thought, right, on the rules and regulations that we have to follow, right? And it's the same thing in any industry, in any business. You got to have some diversity of thought, right? If it's always just this one way mainly, we're gonna suffer. And like you said, sometimes I've told you, even being myself personally playing at every level, some of these guys in the front office, they'll draft a guy and it didn't work out. They look good on paper, but it's not translating on the field like they thought it would because of what they saw on paper with their numbers and what they look like in their 40 and all these different things. But sometimes there's some guys that aren't good route runners, right? There's some guys that play running back like I did. That didn't have great vision, right? They weren't students of the game. They couldn't read what the defensive front line was giving them to know that when we run the trap, if that nose guard is coming up that center, you better keep your eyes on them and see which way, watch film and see which way, what gap that guy's usually shooting. He's going to tell you on a trap, right, that if you should go to that play side A gap or backside A or B gap, But if you're running back and you are and any player, if you don't do your homework and get on and film study and learn that the team that you're getting ready to play and understand and watch what kind of fronts that they have, do they normally have an odd front where they cover up the center, or do they have an even front where they keep the center uncovered, but they have a shaded nose guard, maybe in the A gaps, right? Or he's at an angle like they used to. Some of them don't do it much anymore, but they do it some. But as a good running back, if you got vision, I'm watching film, so I can have a good tendency to know when I'm running this trap, right? Or if I'm running this sweep, where my cuts are because the front is an even or hard front. As a running back, you better do your homework and be a student of the game, whatever sport it is. You better watch some film, right? So you'll get an advantage. So when you run certain plays, I know what gap I'm going to, right? Because I watch enough film. When this guy is in there, when that number in there for that nose tackle position is in there, and they got a odd front or even front, I see what the tendencies are, where they usually use him. He's either shooting, strength side A or B gap or weak side A or B gap, right? And so I know I'm running certain plays and I'm looking, okay, when I watch film, okay, this is their strength. They're strong right, okay. And he's usually, from the film that I watch, he's usually a weak side A or B gap, gapper, right? Or if it's strong right, he usually go backside A or B gap. He shoots that gap, right, when they're strong right or strong left. Okay, and I know we got a play call, this dive or this trap, right? This that I have to run. I know if I'm gonna have to hit be patient, be a little more patient and angle back and hit that backside A or B gap or just right over the center. You got to look at that stuff. You got to watch film and get tendencies of what the front line is doing when they're in an odd or even front and you're running certain plays in the run game, right? Or where the heat is coming from and you got a pass block, right? And whether they got a blitzing linebacker in the A or B gap, right? Or the C gap sometimes. So, or delayed blitz coming up. So, and help you time when you should release, to be to leak out, right? To be a leak in case the quarterback didn't get the ball out of his hands and that linebacker didn't blitz. Then I know I'm going through my gap where I'm supposed to do and do me either a 5-yard out or a 5-yard in or just hook up at 5 yards, 3 to 5 yards. So those are kind of things, that you have to learn. And like I said, sometimes these executives will draft a guy and he's not working out, and there's an undrafted free agent guy that they know is better, but because I drafted this guy, he's gonna get every opportunity to get it right. And sometimes as an undrafted free agent, you got it right from day one, but this draft pick, because they don't want to look stupid, right? Because it's all about marketing. We drafted this guy in the 4th, 3rd, 5th round, but we got this undrafted free agent guy we know obviously is faster, better route runner, or better blocker, whatever the case may be at the position. you know, these guys, these men who make decisions are going to go for that, you know, as opposed to saying, look, I've got to play the best guy. I'm trying to win some games. And sometimes, sad to say, like the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, he's a great marketer, and they haven't been to a Super Bowl in almost 30 years, but Jerry will still talk that talk and get people to buy tickets and buy merchandise for the Dallas Cowboys. And he's made so many promises and undelivered since their Super Bowl was almost 30 years ago. And so that's what you have. So Aaron is just feeling a little bit disrespected, but he'll get over it. And he'll be playing somewhere this year. But he got to remember, you didn't tell that man right away that you want to play. You said, yeah, I'm interested. So they might have felt disrespected as well when you gave that answer you gave. But hey, I like Aaron Rodgers. I hope, you know, I would like to see him get another shot for another year or two. And then, hey, if after that, man, it's time, you know, it's time to hang it up. It ain't going to happen. And so, but we'll see what's going on, man. The draft is next Thursday. I'm excited for that. So, hey, let's get it. I'll be doing more lives as we move up to that day on Thursday night for the NFL draft. Man, excited to see where Shador and Cam Ward and all these guys go, and Travis and Shiloh and these guys get picked up. So it's going to be exciting. You know, there's not a lot of great talent, I think, compared to years past, but it still, you know, it still has excitement with some things. So they got to do that. But hey, I appreciate you guys joining me. Coach Smith, Love the Game, 24/7 on YouTube and Facebook, but Coach Smith 27 on IG. But hey, I got my website, lovethegame247.com. You can reach Coach Smith social media platforms via my website. So go to lovethegame247.com and connect with Coach Smith. And I appreciate you guys who listen to this, you know, live and in living color, right? But if you listen to it live as well as video, please, on my YouTube channel, subscribe, hit that bell. I appreciate the love y'all give Coach Smith and watching and giving me views. And I'm trying to get my subscriptions to my YouTube channel over 1,000. I'm at like a little over 600. So I appreciate any love that you guys throw out at Coach Smith. Later on tonight, I'm going to go live on my TikTok at Love the Game 24/7. So you can connect with me a little bit later. Probably in another hour, I'll go live on my TikTok. But I just want to jump on my Facebook, YouTube, and my IG and hit you guys up. But I appreciate you joining me, man. Y'all have a good evening, and I'll see you later this weekend. Take care, y'all.